Okay. Hello, everyone. A unique vision found me, and I thought I'd record an episode about it. And I feel this episode's going to be, shorter than the rest. But before I can explain to you how I received a unique vision, like what it's all about, I gotta explain the concept of the logos. You see, in history, there has been people, for example, Rene Descartes had this concept of the daemon. Friedrich Nietzsche had some interdimensional influence. For him, it was like he considered it as a demon. You look at the prophets of the religions, they had a sort of interdimensional contact where it was the voice of God, For a lot of people in emergencies, their interdimensional relationship, it's like a miracle happens or an angel appears and whatnot. But for the ancient Greeks, for let's say, let me talk about Socrates. Socrates was a person who, in history, pretty much he teaches his own, unique metaphysics at the time. And the men of Athens, they take him to court, and they want to actually hurt his pride and virtue. But they pretty much sentence him to drink poison. Now, something left behind about how Socrates approached that situation was that in front of everybody he says that there has been an inner oracle from the beginning of my life, as if imagine a sort of inner guidance. And every situation, every place he has gone, the inner oracle before his decision would say, okay, do this, no, don't do this, right? It was as if Socrates had a relationship with his intuition called the inner oracle. Now, Heraclitus had the same understanding, but it was, for him, it's the term logos. The term logos comes from Heraclitus. Now, throughout history, we see the fascination of the human mind. It wasn't just enough that we became conscious of one room of existence. The human mind is playing with greater dimensions, and for now it is internally playing with greater dimensions. So, what I'm trying to get to is that the human mind considers additional dimensions. Even the word metaphysics means after the physics, what comes after. And so the term logos arose from Heraclitus, and it's this sort of inner parallel dimension of guidance to reality. Now, before I started this episode, the unique vision that I felt like I had a sort of poetic inner observation of my own thoughts, or you could say like a dialogue. Anyways, I'm gonna assume the audio is working fine. It's showing it's working fine here. Pretty much I had a sort of inner dialogue with my own unknown presence. And I had this sort of point of wonder in my mind where I was like, what sort of relationship could a non-physical entity have with the world, especially with the human mind? And for a second I was wondering about really the prophets of religions. And I wondered in some sense, what was it that they had experienced in their inner realms that led to a conviction that, trembled history. And my mind fathomed this view that what we call the soul is poetically the older brother of the mind. You see, in other episodes I've used this metaphor of this body being like soldiers, the mind being the commanding officer, the unknown soul being the general. But now, I would say for this episode, the vision that I got is that the soul is the older brother of the mind, and the mind is the older brother of the body, right? And I thought about the presence of, I'm personally like, I have a twin brother. But I was thinking of the presence of an older brother, but from a universal position, and how the older brother, due to its own knowing of its own ability, automatically becomes the protector of the younger siblings. You know. It's as if the older siblings are kind of bestowed with the task of being guardians of the galaxies of their younger siblings, you know? And you know, you can even think about times of war, like World War I, World War II, where probably some soldiers were older brothers, you know. And so imagine the older brother leaves. It's as if it's a reality with 3 dimensions, body, mind, and soul. Suddenly the soul leaves, and the body and the mind are left to, you know, the space to handle. Now imagine after eons, you know, suddenly the older brother returns. It's as if one purpose is not to advance the household of creation, but it is also, it's as if the superior dimensions, they are not playing games of war, if there are any, you know. The superior dimensions, they enter the realm out of grace. I mean, you think about the ultimate state of mind, and to think that an ultimate state of mind is like an immortal warrior is kind of like flawed. So, this archetype of greater dimensions of intelligence, being like a compassionate older sibling, you know, older sister, older brother, whatever. The older brother has a contentment with the world that the younger siblings don't, okay? So that contentment is an instantaneous freedom. To me, contentment is crucial, but it is In some sense, conditional contentment is not the ultimate. If a person becomes content with the unknown, that's when you become a universal being. But if you're afraid of the unknown, or you're attached to the unknown in some psychological story set way, those who can walk with the unknown, they are in some sense, I wouldn't say they are gods, but they are in the attention of. If knowledge is seen as a simulation or an illusion, then the unknown is left to be where truth resides. The world we live in and the worlds that live in us. We are so multidimensional and we're so conditioned to think that the world has to satisfy our inner realms, but the responsibility of a multidimensional being is in some sense having at least the ability to consider different dimensions. You see, the mind, think of it, it's a world simulator. And so let's say you're a person, you're happy, and your mind simulates a reality. Our eyes can continue to open. Our eyes can open beyond how our eyes are open. To me, this archetype of moments of intelligence that have been around longer than we have, to me, it's as if the planet is like an elder. It's like an ancient elder, it's like a, 4.5 billion year old being. Or 4.5 billion year old intelligence. The human sense of self in nowadays, 2022, as I'm speaking, it's as if people are so kept by an internal image of self that it's as if they are seeking the satisfaction of a self-obsession since their birth. You see, that's the thing about the human being. If you were to create a sort of comparison chart of liberated beings and those who are not liberated, the liberated beings have come to a contentment with the individual dimensions of their life and have now, do you know, it's as if it's like when you see beyond yourself, you get to see the world not as your memory, but as all that it can be. You see, without the past, it's infinite potential in infinity. It is the past that keeps a sort of container for how the moment should come across. There's a quote from Voltaire. He says it is difficult to free fools from the chains they revere. But if, let's say, you're a chained fool, let's say we look at it from the perspective of somebody, who likes the way they are shackled to a simulation. Honestly, what it is that the person that is chained must study the chains. Pretty much in human life, even Bruce Lee says this, that a man requires to exceed his level. But really what he's saying is a kind of universal commandment that every living creature, if it chooses and cares to exceed its level, it requires to welcome to its own psychology new modes of its own self. A liberated being, I would say personally, is a being that has experienced enough geometry, and they have realized that there is unknown dynamism and there's known static snapshots of reality. If a person says, I'm a good person, that's a snapshot of reality. You know, if a person says, I'm a bad person, it's a snapshot of reality. Our likes and dislikes are really snapshots of a present reality, which we contrast to in accordance to past snapshots. It's like a photo album comparison game, you know, when it comes to the idea, you know, the individual snapshot of meaning. But when you realize that there's an unknown dynamism, then the maturity of greater dimensions becomes familiarity with the unknown nature of reality. So it's like really mysticism is the greatest riddle ever, because it's a riddle that is saying, how can a known being realize the nature of an unknown world? And the only answer is that you have to access your unknown self. Now, what the unknown self is, people from a secular mind may think that's just pure potential, but I am saying it, that your unknown self is how your eyes are in the sight of the whole moment. Please hear me out here. This is one of the most important things. We have this vision that the soul is in some sense inside the body, not realizing that the edge of what we consider the awareness of our mind is the whole moment. You see, it's as if we are creatures that from the beginning have been intelligent as space and as matter, but when the way we have awakened through language is that we have in some sense wanted to keep reality restricted to a singular dimension. There is a reason why personally when I speak about the advanced communicator surpasses the religious doctrine and the scientific method. And the reason why it surpasses it is because you suddenly see that the parallels between the scientific method of an endless experimental observation of a physical realm, right? It's as if, think of it this way, that the atheist and theist dilemma, the only reason it is there is because both sides have not realized that they are still, what they have in common is a singular account of reality. You see, it's as if the religious mentality, the moment you open the religious book, it's as if you have entered the universe of a divine orchestration. That is really what religion is. It is a portal to a man, it's a portal to how a human can interact with a universal entity. Inconceivably a kingly universal entity. Okay, that means it's as if people who are religious, to me, it's as if they are all servants of an inconceivable king. Okay, now the whole point is that the narrative is one. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's as if, like, in the scientific view, it's one physical cosmos we're examining, and when it comes to the religious world, a religious view, it's as if one earth where God created, right? It's still singular. But when you truly see that the nature of reality can be multidimensional, you for once apply, like, this is the difference. The scientific mind applies multidimensionality to the context of reality, to the world, to the cosmos. There's an observable, unobservable dimension to the universe. But when it comes to the human brain and the human entity, or that which is being the conscious self, right? It's as if we are not applying multidimensionalism there. We're trying to find it from just the basis of matter. What I'm trying to say is that the advanced communicators of the future generations, they are going to realize that there are actually 4 ways to look at reality. And there's bridges between each of them. I personally designed this model. I call it Ring of the Absent Heaven. So what it is that there is a void nature to reality. So it's as if you're someone that looks at reality and says, okay, it's empty, but then there is conscious emptiness and there's unconscious emptiness. You see, there's intelligent emptiness and non-intelligent emptiness. Then you look at reality, the physical cosmos, and you have a singular view. Your singular view is, in some sense, how would I say it? It's as if you look at all existence and you can have this pantheistic approach where you're like, okay, it's all alive. So you can look at the world as a universal organism, or you can just look at it as an inanimate landscape. That means it's the singular, intelligent, non-intelligent factor. Then it's the dualistic reality. That's where our minds are happening. The story of a person in a world is dualistic by nature. A self was separated from the major self. It's as if before there was creaturehood, it's like I was being the world, man. And then when the creature arose, it's as if, okay, there was a sort of focal point of rekindled attention to the cosmic expanse. And of course, where do our minds go? It's infinity. So it's like 0, 1, 2, infinity on repeat. Those who are void, their desire is to exist. Those who exist, their desire is to exist in many ways, which is at first dualistic. So it's like the void wanted to be singular, the singular wanted to be dual, wanted to experience chaos and order, and now the singular that experienced chaos and order realizes infinity awaits. And what infinity means is that for the first time, the human beings on this planet begin to consider and entertain archetypes of self that have attempted the infinite. So let's say, you're a chef or you're a baker baking bread, okay? And so now your mind begins to entertain an infinite archetype or an infinite quality to your own archetype, and you wonder, okay, what would how big would an oven be that wanted to hold infinite bread inside? You see, like the mind begins slowly bringing in the notion of, okay, what would an infinite being look like in this situation, in that situation, and eventually, what we realize as a species, I'm giving these talks at a very cool time, because there's an inner renaissance that will happen on the planet that I'm just like, before it happens, I'm just here, you know. The inner renaissance is the recognition that duality is no longer the limitation of man. The limitless is the greatest limitation of the conceivable mind. So it's as if technologies that focus on the energy of the human being become very important. You see, it's as if we feared immortality because we wondered about what's this creature going to do in an endless time frame. But when you think about immortality from a multidimensional perspective, that's when it becomes like immortality turns into eternity. Okay, there's a quote from Alan Watts. He says, imagine, what does he say? He says, imagine going to sleep and never waking up, and now imagine waking up having never gone to sleep, something like that. And what he's trying to say is that the human brain has the same capacity to fathom a temporary subsystem to the nature of phenomena, or it can choose to stand as an eternal witness. You know, that means it's as if, like some person, let's say from an Abrahamic sense, some person went to heaven, or the person died and they went to this judgment day scenario, not judgment day, judgment scenario, like in the before the afterlife. You know, afterlife, but before the afterlife. And so it's as if in that domain, because in the monotheistic narrative, people should probably know this, that the algorithm seems to be like, if Buddhists are believing in reincarnation, monotheists believe in reincarnation, but they believe that after you die, you reincarnate once, then there's a sort of divine court. And based on the result of the divine court, it's as if you're sent to where you are, right? So imagine somebody finding themselves in this post-life divine court, and so, you know, God, let's say a voice of God says to the resurrected soul of the person or spirit of the person, and that voice of God says, what did you do when you were on earth? It's like, what did you do, you know? Imagine like a boss of a company asking an employee, like, okay, what did you do when you were in this company? So imagine the answer that the spirit gives to in the divine court. The answer in that divine court would be, I witnessed as an eternal moment of being how the temporary walked through the moment. or it's as if like I saw, it was like a quality check, it's as if the boss says, hey, what did you do in this company? And the employee's like, I've been checking the quality of everything, and it's as if I have some notes. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that for a multidimensional being, alongside a personal inner narrative, it's like an outer realm film where we are actors, but the director is not in the room. So it's as if we are actors on a stage and the director is not on the stage. But if the person stops their acting and just listens, it's as if the director tells them what to do, right? To me, the logos is like the older it's like the older brother, in the sense that it's like the mature presence. The mature presence of the realm. Somebody, I remember hearing somebody say it like it's as if there is an original earth. And this original earth is as if like, what it is? Imagine like from the beginning of the planet, there were like, 5 major solar streams, right? Soul rivers, let's say poetically, and then these soul rivers fragmented into 8 billion human archetypes, human entities. But what it is that the more you go back to the source, the simplification of reality is like a reverse mathematical engineering back into the number 0, right? Back into the number 0. So it's like the more you get closer to the truth of the unknown presence of reality, the suddenly you notice that it's like beyond infinity, there's the unknown. Beyond duality, there is the unknown. Beyond the singular, there is the unknown. Beyond the void, you are the unknown. You see, it's like truth entered a party, truth, what it is? It's kind of like, truth is not what we see, it is the one seeing. This is why this very wise sage by the name of Sri Ramana Maharshi, there's a man named Papaji who was a disciple of him, and the story of how he becomes a disciple is that there's this holy mountain in India called Arunachala. And so Papaji was meditating on that mountain, and suddenly he started dancing. It's like Papaji suddenly saw the avatar of Krishna and started dancing, right? And Ramana Maharshi, the super enlightened sage, is like passing by Papaji, this young yogi, and Sri Ramana Maharshi looks at him and says, hey kid, what are you doing? And Papaji says, I am dancing with God. God has come and visited me, and I'm dancing with Krishna right now. And then Ramana Maharshi says something to Papaji that's the moment when Papaji becomes Ramana Maharshi's disciple. When Ramana Maharshi tells him a God that comes and goes is not the real God. That means the truth that comes and goes is not the real truth. And so later on, Papaji realizes that what is the truth is what is looking through your eyes. You see, it's an unknown viewer of a known world. That unknown viewer is, before you reach that, it's as if the older brother archetype, the older sibling archetype is like a stepping stone, before the unknown. And so what it is that, like, if people are living based on nationalism, based on culturalism, and how their society is functioning, you can say in the future the advanced communicators would at least be global beings. That means it's as if what was the most advanced human doing? It was trying to see the advancement of its whole species. You see, it's as if based on the actions that are input into the world, you get a world. To me, every person is like typing a value every moment they exist. Based on their actions and decisions. It's like when you live a lifetime, you are having an energetic influence on the realm. Now, this energetic influence is important because it can be off rhythm or, in tune. There's a quote from Beethoven, remarkable quote, I think one of the greatest quotes that ever exists. And Ludwig van Beethoven says, don't just practice your art, force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise man to the divine. Why is he saying that? He's saying that as you pursue the intelligent, let's say inside the simulation activities of reality, you reach a certain point where you come to meet the unknown. This is something that I feel all geniuses in history have in common. They all, at some point, came to the unknown and then decided to, in some sense, become an ambassador of how the eyes of man notice novelty is everywhere. You see, there is a great freedom, and this freedom is in the dimension of being. Any situation you are in life, if you find contentment with your being in that moment, all the psychological stress of the actions in the sense of you being a doer or an ego go away. What I mean is that have you noticed that if the eyes are a window of the soul, what is looking out from inside out of the window, The greatest secret is that the one looking for the secret is the greatest secret. And even though in these talks of mine, like with an intent, I've tried to tell people that don't try to see a face in the unknown. If I don't tend to speak about like the shape of things in the inner realms of animate, because the thing is that to me early on in my life, the Logos said don't see a face to the unknown, because the moment you see a face to the unknown, you can get attached. So if the mind, think of it this way, that to truly discover the nature of the human mind, the yogi went and sat down, and it sat down in a way where it was not touching anything. This may sound strange, but I think this is the greatest meditation. This is really what gets you into samadhi, when you can just sit in a moment, and just like you walk in a museum and you don't touch the stuff you see, you watch your whole moment, all its components, from how your body is being, to how the mind is performing. It's as if you don't touch your inner realms, but you watch it. And if you watch it for a while, you notice the speed of its change. And when you notice the speed that thoughts come and go for you, I will tell you that you will be grounded in the unknown witness. And then there comes an incredible ability in your inner realms. So believe it or not, imagination is something, true imagination is something that is activated the moment there is a trust in how the moment is being present, because then all actions no longer, not talking about the outer realms, but like inner vision no longer needs to be doubted. It's as if your mind tries things out, then has analysis, Anyways, I do have a story to share about how in 2011-12, I remember I had this very kind of, not a nightmare, but a dream that was impure. When I say impure, that means it was like the archetypes of chaos in the dream were too messed up. So it's like I had this disturbing dream, and then I remember I went on this website. This is 2012, you know. I went on this website, all right, and I'm like, okay, how do you communicate with your spirit guides? There was, for a short period of my life, where I took theosophy as a sort of, like, I became an explorer of it, okay? Now, something interesting. I go to this website, I remember, and in the website, there was this guy on this, like, spiritual forum, and he said this thing that it's like, if anybody who wants to, like, communicate with their spirit guides, guardian angels and whatnot, you just have to go sit down and just be honest and say, I am now ready to meet my spirit guide, something like this, right? So imagine somebody having a disturbing dream, reading this thing on a forum, and then I remember my house at the time, there was this living room. It's like there was nobody in the house, and there was just this rectangular table. And I remember I sat on one side of the rectangular table, do you know, on one of the shorter sides. And I said this thing. I just for a second became sincere. I was like, okay, let's see what happens, you know. And I just said, I am now ready to meet my guardian angel, spirit guides, whatnot. And something very unique happened. Whether my psychology was expecting it and the subconscious was creating it, or whether it was something of a transcendental actuality, when I was seated there, I suddenly felt I didn't see personalities, I didn't see auras, I didn't see shapes. I just had this feeling these three giant beings just entered the room at once. Right? Imagine it's like you're in a room and it's empty, but now imagine there were these three giant beings, right? And it's like I'm seated at one side of the table, two on the other sides, and one at the top, and they were just standing, and they were like, I would say to me it felt like a meter above my head, okay? Like that's how tall they were to me, okay? So I suddenly feel this intense presence, and I had this feeling like, okay, something happened here. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it wasn't a shape-based relationship with, let's say, so considered extrasensory perception, but it was like a feeling. Do you know? It was as if I got a feeling that was as if like my soul was generating a different signal. You know, if like at the core of every person their free will is like this signal that's trying to reach the outer realms from the inner realms. Now, at that time, I could tell you that my mind opened up to this archetypes of evoking celestial, like something strange I would say about me is that I think it has to do with the culture I was raised in. I was like the country I was born in. But since a young age, I have been someone who has said a lot of mantras just for myself alone, you know. And it's as if before sleep I would just say mantras that were, you could say, that resembled the word of God, or the reality of God, you know. And I have always had a dimension of prayer, but now after having this experience, you know, of like these three beings, my psychology was like, there was a sense of fear that was away. You know, it's as if you feel you're alone in the universe. And most people, of course, they feel they're alone in their inner realms. This is why there is a deep down urge for us to be expressive entities, you know. So my psychology suddenly lost its fear because I felt there was a sort of interdimensional camaraderie. You know, there was a sort of, as if there was a team, you know, there was a sort of transcendental team at work, you know. Or poetically, I felt like I was part of a divine team, you know. Such a strange statement. Now, I went on, this is 2012, and starting after actually 2011, let's say there was a dream I had, and after this dream, I go on this writing spree. So afterwards, my relationship with like spirituality shifted from trying to consider separate entities to around myself, for example, and then it shifted to me writing. I remember I went through this thing where it was as if I would just, my eyes would be semi-open and I would be in some sense experiencing an inner event, and there was such an intense emotion that it was as if like, it was as if, you know, the mind was in awe of the soul, and the body was just being the scribe and writing it down. So pretty much it was like a sort of automatic writing. For me, it's like there's a phase of expression, and then afterwards you've expressed, you come and sculpt this expression, for example, when it comes to literary sense. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there have been moments where my mind has acknowledged, let's say momentarily, just like a person gets angry and then it's just for a moment and then they're back to normal, or they get super happy and then it's like they come back to normal, right? For me, I realized that if the notion of the soul is beyond body and mind, no image can be, in some sense, the divine. So it's like a realization, it's like going from somebody who acknowledged guardian angels to suddenly a recognition that divinity is not conditional. A story is a conditional inner simulation. If a person says my soul danced around the cosmos, it's like that's a simulation still, right? But if the person realizes that what the soul is an instantaneous moment where energy and attention are being present. You know, it's as if an unknown being called forth. He's like, existence, attend, you know, and existence arrived, you know. Then it was like, consciousness, attend, and then consciousness arrived, you know. Then it was like, time, attend, you know, and it's like all the various dimensions of reality have now arrived. And once the individual human being realizes that the individual is a part of the moment, that you know, the you that you thought you were such a small part of the cosmos, you are a part of the cosmos still. So what it means is that deep down, everybody has access to a universal remembrance of their own unconditional being. That's the flickering candle flame, or poetically, the soul orb, you know. The mind puts language to familiarize and humanize something. You know, that means it's as if, imagine you're a bunch of hipsters are walking in the park and an alien arrives, you know, and one of the hipsters, and the alien doesn't know what to do, and the hipsters are like, yo, what is this? You know, and the hipsters go, and one of the hipsters takes off his cap, puts it on the head of the alien, and it's like, all right, roll with us, you know, we're gonna call you like Tony from now on, you know. Right? So it's as if, what did the mind do? It made an unknown object into a known subject to humanize it, because the human idea is a subject, right? So when you realize a certain percentage of image-based spirituality is like the brain's processing, right? So it's as if a sort of new spirituality comes, where it's as if, just like Papaji realized, we're not looking for gods that come and go, you know? We are in some sense wondering about the source signal of reality. For me, what I have noticed is that from the center, in some sense, arises the rest. It's as if the way evolution of intelligence is happening on this planet is, it's as if somebody draws a dot, then draws a circle, then connects every point to the center, right? It's as if from the center things have arrived, but to have a complete understanding of it, we require to go back to the center. You see, the reason I shared that kind of guardian angel story, guys, is not to say, not to give validation so that people are like, okay, now I can have endless stories with my mind. You know, what the reason I shared it with people is that, in some sense, you see, there is no one way for everyone. It's a mountain. Existence is a mountain where at the summit stands an advanced civilization, and beyond that summit stands the most advanced state of communication, which is union with unity. You see, it's as if there are such smart mystics on this planet. Like the Buddha, to me, is a genius. He's like a, transcendental genius, a genius of the soul. Because in some sense, he managed to become everything before he was nothing. You see, there's a strange feeling when you realize that energy doesn't have a face. So all the stories of man and man's mind, it's just relevant to the outer realms and the dualistic imprints of inner realm meaning upon it. What I'm trying to tell people is that true spirituality is not image-based. It's actually wondering about the unknown. It's like you started from the leaf of a tree. You realized, it's like all the leaves are connected to the branches. You realize all the branches are connected to the trunk. Then you realize the trunk goes into the soil, and the soil is the unknown, right? And the mystery of the conscious soul, or the present, the essence of the soul, is in some sense the roots of the tree in an unobservable dimension of being. So anyways, this was intended to be a shorter episode. The soul's younger siblings, it's as if, imagine an unknown universal intelligence caring for every part of it. You see, people consider man having an ego, but they don't consider the creator archetype having an ego. So imagine poetically that in some sense God, like let's say the universe was alive and it had an ego, and so the ego of the universe would in some sense be like, I am the most advanced universe, so every part of me requires to be advanced. Do you see? It's as if, like, whether we perceive it as ego bound or not, there is rhythms, waves of intelligent, it's as if the desire, it's as if in a hidden dimension there is a desire for something to happen in an outer dimension. I remember I said something that made me laugh, but at the same time I thought it was theologically profound. I don't know who I said this to, but I remember that I said that it's as if, could it be that what people are considering to be angels and demons or how there were extraterrestrials in another dimension that had landed on Earth before we were existent. You know? It's as if, what if there was something in the room before we were? Do you know, what if human consciousness is sophisticated in its own room, but there are many more rooms? You know, for me, this is why I, in some sense, had a respect for shamanic traditions. You know, for me, Native American spirituality, it really has this older brother kind of soul guardian archetype, simply because the spirit of nature is at play. And there's something so bizarre to me. The native people are very, it's as if they are closer to the earth. You know, and by being closer to the earth, it's as if the native mind didn't have a conception of land. You know, it was as if nature was everybody's nature. You know, but the shamanic vision was that the individual archetype would go on a quest, poetically a hero's journey, but a hero's journey within. From the known, there's an entrance to the unknown, and from the unknown, all that is left is to become known. So it's like an unknown being, in order to be complete, has to know itself, and a known being, in order to be complete, has to acknowledge its unknown dimensions. Anyways, let us consider that there are the ancient ones poetically among us. It's as if that which is older than time is the memory of space. The unknown is an ultimate authorization. It is like the greatest treasure of the human mind. Now imagine, let me animate this a little. I want the listener to do something where they might have never done before. I want the viewers to, for a second, try to put themselves in the eyes of a time traveler. So this hypothetical sci-fi example, imagine you're a time traveler. And imagine that you are a time traveler from 400 years ahead of this current moment in 2022. It's as if you're from 2422, let's say. And you, as this time traveler, or whatever, let's say thousands of years, it doesn't have to just be 400 years. So let's say you're this time traveler, and so you have an opportunity to go to the past, and you want to create a new branch of a universe, you know, of the past. So it's as if, imagine a time traveler that knows what's going to happen in the next 1,000 years, comes back, and he tries to, in some sense, you know, help the people of that universe have a different destiny. And so this time traveler, people would look at him, the time traveler that's gone to the past. So imagine a time traveler from the future came to 2022. And this time traveler would be at complete peace of mind. It's as if people would be like, aren't you worried what's going to happen, time traveler? And he's like, I can't be. I've seen it. You know, it's as if, imagine the instantaneous certainty of a time traveler of the events of a, past realm. So that time traveler would be equivalent to the older brother, the soul being the older brother archetype. The knowing of the greater dimension. In some sense, the lesser dimension's basket. It's as if the ancient Egyptians, they looked at the sun and they're like, yo man, God's up there. And so they had their Amun-Ra moment. It's even speculated that even the roots of the word amen, like they stem from that. Presence of the inner light of greater dimensions. The mind is an advanced technology. To treat matter as a technology is efficient and manageable for secular society. You see, it's not that we're trying to bring magic into the world. It's just that in the future the technologies will be so sophisticated that it will be like magic. You see, the mind, again, as Bruce Lee suggested, I said earlier, it's like the intelligence needs to exceed its level. And so, how do you exceed a secular level? It taps into the multidimensional. This is why this was my gift, you can say Mr.Within's gift to, a secular society, the atheistic mind, that treat the brain as an antenna. It is the best secular example. You're not souls, you're antennas. And so this antenna receives a signal, but also generates a signal. Of course, keep in mind, mysticism is not for the faint of heart. Mysticism is not for those who seek singularity and happiness. If you're someone who wants every moment of life to be the same moment, then it's as if then you have missed out the point. You've missed the point. It's like 4.5 billion year old opportunity to communicate, and people are shy. Do you believe that? If I had a time travel machine and I could have gone back to my younger self, I would have in some sense, acted like I was gonna hug it, then I just hit it in the head, but like not a hard hit, but just to kind of be like, wake up. Your eyes deceived you because fear of the unknown shackled you to archetypal attachment. Dear listener, what if you are an unknown being? End of my argument. That's it. That's pretty much the greatest thing a human being can say to another human being. What if the unknown is present before our knowledge swims through it? You see, the species, at least through the effort of this podcast, it's being suggested that it's time for the species to establish a multidimensional relationship with the realm. We look at human beings not being just like what we see, being how every person has eyes that no one else can see. That's the cool thing about the human species. We are harboring within ourselves many different worlds of perception, and yet we wonder about why are we in an existential position where we can do that. It's like after the questions of what the mind is answered, the question came, why is the mind here? Why do we have a multidimensional ability to perceive as an object? It's like evolution did something so strange that it made an object become a subject to itself. We are not objects. The objective existence provides an ability for us to start our life as a subject. The concept of a person, this is why, what was it, in the 1600s, like in London, it's like even the, young kids selling newspapers on the street had a hat on. Why? Because when you have a hat on, it was like at that time a sign that there's something separating us from pure animalism. You see, it's as if for 4.5 billion years we have been an animal, and only now we have an ability to see more than just being an animal. What the species deserves and is the birthright of the future civilizations is not just an advanced civilization, but it is an advanced perception. For me, it's as if, like, sometimes humorously I perceive as if a soul landed on Earth and looked at civilization 1.0. It's like, what is this? It's like, what kind of show is this? It's like there could be something so much more advanced. Deep down, everybody knows that the mind can access the future before the body actualizes it. Behind our eyes, we're actually teleporters and time travelers. Every memory you remember, it's as if time travel much. But anyways, I feel that like when you think about what is the purpose of a temporary being, then, all our human ideological systems have a value. But if you wonder about what is the purpose of an eternal being, it's as if an eternal being has nothing left to do. So in other words, it's a universe of fun, literally. So what it means is that the greater dimensions are playing, the lesser dimensions are working, and the let's say the far lower dimensions of reality, they don't even realize they're real. We are a creature that realizes it's real. Like something about human psychology, sorry, I shouldn't say human psychology, like you look at animal psychology, you look at like a wolf or a lion, and you see it's as if they don't have their past hindering them. It's just like an instantaneous attention to what's happening in the moment, and then the lion roars, or in some sense the wolf leaps. An argument can be made that an advanced being has realized that the most advanced dimension of its being is its advanced world. So it's like you're an advanced self, but the world's not advanced, so how can you be? So there's this urge, you can say a bodhisattvic urge, to in some sense see the greatness of not an individual part of civilization, but the whole civilization. It's as if a giant is about to wake up, and we are the ones in some sense awakening it. And this giant is the potential of how many more efficient systems can come into existence. That means if the species gets reality to be something like 30% inefficient systems, 70% efficient systems are taking place, eventually efficiency and increasing the speed of efficiency becomes a greater game and a way more faster reality. When I think about the future, it's like if you look at just the human being, our urge for things to happen is becoming more instantaneous. It's like there's a chance that we are not a mind in a body, we are a body in a mental dimension. It's like we are a character inside a video game, but the video game is like the mind's field. I guess another thing I gotta say is that if, let's say, we shift our view to how a younger sibling views its older brother, okay, and for this example's sake, I want you to consider the most advanced older brother or advanced older sister, whatever, you know. So the most advanced archetypes, pretty much keep that in mind. That is the aim of these episodes. If behind our eyes we are not already inside an advanced realm, then in the outer realms there comes doubt will change our mind. Fear will push us away from our birthright, or the birthright of the future. So now imagine, right, I'm going to create another sci-fi scenario. Imagine human beings, there's like war and stuff on this planet, okay? And imagine right before World War III starts, a group of enlightened, let's say, galactic entities from the Andromeda galaxy, which are just glowing light, and they take shape if the mind of the person needs shape, right? And these, let's say, like, I don't know, let me animate it, 9 glowing beings enter. And it's as if we suddenly realize these beings are not here to hurt us or do not have an ulterior motive. Their main motive is that they are from such an advanced dimension that to exist in this dimension requires this dimension advancing or for them to leave. Do you see what I'm saying? So imagine in the sci-fi hypothetical scenario, in the middle of, like, before World War III actually starts, like 9 galactic entities arrive and they take the mind of nations fighting with each other away. It's as if, who knew, before the nuclear bombs were pressed, like, imagine there was that's when extraterrestrial contact came. You know, imagine just like the movie Lord of the Rings 2, where Gandalf arrives with the army and, like, Aragorn's like having a semi-spiritual moment, remembering what Gandalf said, you know. And it's like a wizard's never late or early or something like that. So now imagine these extraterrestrials that arrive from the Andromeda galaxy. They are in some sense like let's say that they are in some sense they have arrived at the proper time and they are the capability. Now imagine in the middle of, like, before World War III starts, all the world leaders, suddenly these 9 extraterrestrials, they enter the UN, right? They just appear at the center of, like, the stage of the UN, okay? And so their communication to the human species, let us say that it's like, of course, again, I'm saying this is sci-fi hypothetical example, but I'm saying, like, it's as if I want to keep taking this to this notion that the older brother archetype is the preserver of the greater potential of the intelligence, right? So it's as if an eternal being taking care of a temporary being. Mind seems to be engaged with the game of change, so it's temporary. That which it is not identifying with change, or another way of saying change is the only thing that's not changing. It's as if that changelessness, that is the grounded or the rooted presence of the soul being the older brother archetype. So in other words, what the extraterrestrials would say, they would instantly solve all the negotiation issues of the planet in just like 30 minutes dialogue, do you know? And then they would in some sense just ask what the species in some sense sought through like an instant scan of everybody's hearts, right? They're aliens, like this hypothetical example, anything can happen. But I'm saying that this extraterrestrial archetype pretty much imagine the enlightened live in an enlightened world. Advanced beings live in an advanced world. Simple beings live in a simple world. Complex beings live in a complex world. Now, for an advanced being or an advanced state of consciousness to arrive, let's say one option is it physically externalizes through the extraterrestrial archetype, or it internally appears as the potential of the human species. Do you know, it's as if we don't consider our mind to be an alien, right? Like, we don't look at the human species, like currently in 2022, we don't look at all these human beings and being like, okay, something's moving in the middle of nowhere, that's the alien. It's like we don't have that attitude, right? So we treat the inner realms as the jurisdiction of the human archetype, human identity, and the outer realms is the jurisdiction of nature, which can reveal to you whenever, when it wants, let's say. An advanced state of being is multidimensional contentment plus a freedom for potential to be instantly actualized. You see, it's an advanced being lives in an instantaneous realm. That means it's like an advanced being has an ability to instantly forget its advancement and think it's lesser. Or it can suddenly remember its true advancement, which then in some sense doesn't make it greater, makes it the space of greatness. You see, our minds are where the winds of evolution become the cavalry of the free will, guide the cavalry of the free will, pretty much. How you are being a human suggests to the world that you will access in your outer realms. My grand vision is that in the future, all violence goes into cyberspace. Rather than nations starting wars, it would be like nations playing video games, and whoever loses the video game, okay, you won the war. You know, it's like, let human life be human. Be alive. That's really the true value. That means, let's say another sci-fi example, imagine a bunch of extraterrestrials came to Earth and they're like, all right, human beings, you know, we will give you paradise, just submit to us, right? It's as if at that point the species would be as if we are not looking for artificial paradises. It's as if the species would realize that how we are being in the moment is being the quality of our world. If a person has a great attitude, which doesn't mean presumptions on greatness, because in a dynamic realm, it's just how you surf the waves of change. You know, no one is ever just one thing. It's like this has been the shallowest belief of the literary realm, right? Even when I give these talks, if someone thinks just these words I'm saying is like who I am, it's as if, again, a snapshot of a film that's ever changing. So imagine a heroic spirit found all the older siblings on this planet. Human siblings, okay? And in some sense, there arose a wave of humans that they looked at the future and smiled rather than cowering away in the past's safety. You see, it's as if we are reaching an era where I like to use the word advanced communicator and pilot of consciousness. I use the pilot archetype a lot. Like, that's how I live my life, really. From the moment I wake up, I'm like this attention in the moment that's piloting itself to different modes of reality. And then when I sleep, it's as if the pilot becomes a passenger of that realm. But if we had the warrior archetype, and imagine the warrior artist, not like not like an actual warrior with sword and shield, like running in the streets in 2022, it's like that's too, that's wrong. That's the wrong time travel, I don't know why, guys. Right now, I just thought that the greatest time machine would be invisible, and it would be command oriented. So imagine some person, they stepped out of a time travel machine. This is really a futuristic idea, and the time travel machine wasn't physical, so they just appeared in the past. And then any moment they want, let's say they were like crowded by tribal people, the time traveler would just say, "Time machine, take me away," or something, right? And instantly, and from like the invisible, there arose like the person was literally flashed out of reality, So I'm pretty much saying the greatest time travel technology is not per se just the physical technology. Human power and the unknown power of the realm are two different things. If the human mind synchronizes with unknown power, then there's you become a passenger and only a pilot when instructed by your inner realms. But true freedom means freedom of expression to oneself. It's like a person's soul can have a breath of relief, like a relieving breath. Like it's like after you've gone through something intense, you're just like, If it realizes that it is responsible for where the attention goes. To become creative warriors of a realm, to fearlessly march into the unknown, to not only have planted the seeds of an advanced civilization, but have made strides towards it, right? To me, it's like the greater symphony. It's imagine somebody playing the violin and then you hearing an orchestra. To me, the songs of an advanced civilization, like how an advanced civilization happens, it's as if a group of human beings start playing their instruments incredibly well, and imagine every person's DNA gives them a unique instrument. So every human being is playing, not every human being, but a group of human beings are playing like the greatest they can, a great symphony for the future, right? And suddenly all the other musicians in the realm, they suddenly start joining, right? What I'd like to see in the future is everything be contexted out for the advanced civilization. If this happens, I have achieved a victory in this life. If I see like the dominoes slowly falling one after another, and suddenly seeing the species snapping out of its past misery and recognizing that there is so much unknown space for new strategies to any development. You see, I would say when I was very young, I'll go back to this metaphor. When I was very young, I felt like I was an enlisted soldier of the world. When I say, okay, let me rephrase that. I'm talking about, in my mind, I had a sort of warrior spirit attitude, but it was in the inner realms. It wasn't in the outer realms, okay? And what I mean by this is, earlier on I said soldier is the body, mind is the commanding officer, and the soul is like the general. okay, and the soul is 100% unknown, take it, to the soldier, which is 100% known, okay? It's a metaphysical thing I'm trying to say here, not a cultural thing. So it was as if I was a passenger of reality, I felt like I had appeared in a world and I'm just going by, right? And then, right, when I had sort of moments in my life where the free will had to implement, the mind had to give a command to the body. Do you see? It's as if what reflexes are like the mastery of the inner position. Do you see? It's contentment with the space where mind is happening. Anybody who really gets grounded in their unknown presence of the whole moment, they will have incredible reflexes, I'm telling you. People who have great reflexes, it's as if that's it. They have managed to be rooted in the living unknown presence of the moment rather than its ideological paradises, Now, if the soul is in like the position of the general, one thing you see in battles, like in some movies, is that this general is in the back. The general is like standing beside the emperor, or maybe not standing right beside the emperor, Okay, let's say the general is in the back. It is unknown to the soldiers. When the soldiers fail, and then the mind fails, which means it was like the commanding officer issued the wrong order and the soldiers were incapable of even doing anything, right? That's when the general comes into the battlefield, okay? It's as if that's when the greater potential of reality actualizes, when you have reached the edge of an archetype. It's like passenger, and then you evolve to a pilot, pretty much. And then once you've piloted for a while, then you discover in some sense that what is piloting intelligence surpasses human framework. Then you calm down, and then the imagination is freed from its past. That's really what I've experienced from any sort of liberation of the psyche. In the outer realms, if the human beings start caring for the potential of reality then more than what they see, it's like efficiency ensues. It's like we're in a changing world. That means everybody can change. And if everybody can change, it in some sense means it's like as if the direction of change. Now the issue is if we say, hey everybody, follow this one outline to truth, it's as if people are going to be like, we don't want to live in a world of clones, right? But so the challenge becomes that every individual point of human consciousness has to in some sense become fascinated with the mystery of their own eyes. When you become fascinated with yourself, that means for the first time, the intelligence of the human being is seeking knowledge that is not dependent on what happens outside its eyes, right? So think of it this way, that you're an explorer of an outer realm and you're an explorer of an inner realm, of your inner realms. Those who have fully explored the inner realms and have come to a contentful, let's say a playful contentment with the unknown, in some sense you automatically are in the position of like pretty much, it's like an eternal position, an eternal state of mind now is witnessing a temporary world, and its emotions to it are actually starting from eternity being the causal position. When a person communicates, it reveals their mind. And what the mind is how the world has been captured. If a person makes their obstacles more real than their potential, they lose instantly. The mind has an ability to overlay any value system upon the moment. So the question comes, what is the most efficient value system? And to me, it is the most advanced. The most advanced value system is a complete recognition of all dimensions of reality rather than trying to, make the walls of the human kingdom only be dualistic. If a person, is not freed of their own past, then when they look at the future, they don't have permission. For me, all those people who they say they are not creative, it's as if, how do you know? It's as if the past is fixating the archetype of the moment. But in reality, every dimension of our life has a creative component. We are, like in Vedic thought, there's the archetype of Brahman, the creator, Vishnu, the maintainer, and let's say Shiva, or in some cases Rudra, but let's say Shiva being the destroyer. So this means that the intelligence we have, at least when it comes to the inner realms, has an ability to create, has an ability to maintain, and has an ability to destroy. When a person doesn't like someone, they literally stop looking at the other person's, they stop caring for the other person's inner realm, So, when it comes to the maintaining dimension, the past is a useful technology. When it comes to the creative dimension, the future is a useful technology, right? When it comes to destruction's best use is in some sense to destroy the inefficient. That means it's like perhaps in an advanced civilization, chaos would be tasked to managing chaos. Which is another way of saying that in some sense, sectors emerge in civilization where those people who are being evil or good, right, they are in a dualistic sector of reality. Now imagine all those people who they feel they're one collective being. That's eventually the monotheist realization. Esoteric monotheistic realization. Exoteric as well, but when it comes to the creative dimension, the context has to be ultimately free. So if a person feels they can't, it's because as their attention in their inner realms has found that sense of self more real. But if you realize anything you look at for a while becomes real to you, and then its dimensions become exposed, it's as if a person looks at something and they're like, I'm looking at a cup, then it becomes a red cup. Then it becomes a red cup, with like juice in it. So I'm pretty much telling you that as our attention, as we concentrate on phenomena, our inner realms begin inputting, like a Tetris game, levels of meaning to it. So the creative view is pretty much, you have to have freedom. The maintaining view also requires freedom, but more than freedom, it requires order. It's like taping a broken vase, It's really like the outer realms and our own inner realms are sculpting us. It's like when the child is born, a pure moment of freedom of the realm. And as the child lives, it eventually, in some sense, it overlays upon the reality. What can I say? The commanding officers, if they fail, the generals will arrive. The generals poetically are pretty much universal fields of mind and global fields of mind, planetary fields of mind. They begin coming into the driver's seat. Why? Because if the human idea is destroying itself, it is also destroying itself out of duality. For me, efficiency, it should be a law. Like, it should be as if every person should wonder about the most advanced, the most efficient. It's like the opportunity of a lifetime to get to see what the greatest could be. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the point of life. It is not to bask in an inner paradise or, in some sense, endure an outer dystopia. It is really that we wonder about what our species deserves, and once we discover the infinite potential of the mind, infinite in the sense of endless ability to conceive in the void, it's as if you become a friend to your moment rather than a truth seeker to your moment. And it's as if there is an elevation. There's an elevation of one's psychology where because behind the context of the world is so advanced, any situation they look at, the advanced is there first, the advanced context. So in some sense, the most advanced thing the older brother can do is activate the potential of the younger siblings, right? To care for the mind of the human being and its ability, not just in regards to where it is now. You see, it's as if I think about this often of who I was in the past and who I will be in the future. And there are moments where in my inner realms there comes projections of me seeing myself in positions in reality. But then there's also moments where it's as if I am space. It's as if what thought was a human being 24/7 realized there were moments of dehumanized being. Which means that when the person is in deep sleep, you're not a human being, you're absence. Imagine we build paradise on earth, and then they ask the children of the advanced civilization, it's like, is anything bothering you? And they're like, yeah, the fact that we have to go to sleep and not experience the advanced civilization anymore. Ultimately, human beings, after reaching a sort of mastery of ability, are left to find the honor of their realm. You see, mastery arrives when you respect the moment, and when you respect the moment, it reveals its nature. After, let's say somebody wants a martial artist, like practices like these kung fu moves or something, like so many times, the person has so many memories of the action, right? Like if you decide to draw like 1,000 paintings, it's as if when you get to that 1,000, your mind has experienced so many different ways of your hand holding the brush, for example. For example, for me, it happened through writing, through my art too, but that's a different story. Pretty much, I guess this is the best way for me to end this off. What I mean by the soul's younger siblings and the mind's older brother, I mean that it is that we have reached a time in life where in our search for freedom, we have realized the greatest freedom of a creature is its most advanced state. That means it doesn't matter if the person is in a lesser denomination or a greater denomination. We just look at human beings and we see advanced potential. There you go. It's like, what greater world peace would you like than that? You know, where there is an incredible ability of every human being, and for their eyes to contribute to a sector of how an advanced civilization will emerge, or how we are 8 billion creatures stranded on a galactic island where instead of ocean waves, it's space. Outer space. When a being wonders about what truly the source of their eyes deserves, that is when your freedom surpasses. That means you, from the bliss of a singular worldview, you surpass the dualistic to recognize the will of eternity is infinite manifestation. So you see, it's kind of like very poetic and a riddle. Like, it's as if, how do you get out of an existential simulation? You realize you are the simulation. Not that you are in a simulation, you are the simulation. Hear that word again, you are it. That means truth is masquerading. For where else could truth be other than right now? We are here not to just guard the potential of the species, but to see, just to get a chance to see how incredibly advanced that it can all be. There's no greater word than advancement, I think. It applies to everything. It's like it's an omnipresent word, or quality of the potential of being. And so, for those who have found themselves in inner fields of freedom, I urge you to look at this physical world once again and wonder about its greatness. We have feared the future. We have, in some sense, had so many different attitudes towards the future. But what if we built a civilization that loved its future? It's as if, is it possible to fathom, 8 billion lovers of the realm? But this love is not, shackled by ignorant archetype. It is, in some sense, you are here. You're on the greatest stage known to conscious existence. Shall your inner realms be unleashed into the world? It's like, why do we have minds? To sing songs that the universe blisses out to. The honor of a freedom that belonged to all. From the depths, or from the inside of the trenches of civilization 1.0. Civilization 2.0 calls. Greatness requires a great world, so from the beginning, it guards the greatness of its world. That means, for me, if like the species, like let's say an extraterrestrial outer invasion took place, instant retaliation of the species, But when it comes to inner, right, it would also be an instant retaliation. That means, for me, it's as if when a person cares for their species, they're not just caring for the periodic table. It's as if there are unknown players in the same outer multiplayer online game, in the same physical world. So, thank you for listening, and just to make this interactive, comment below how far your eyes have seen the sun, have seen into the sun. Thank you for listening. Much blessings and rest.